is, as he gets exposed to the vet, he can get more comfortable.
Yeah.
Also, it just depends on how the vet handles them.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody actually knows how to handle dogs well.
Right.
Even in veterinary clinics. That's why vet visits can also be stressful for dogs. Some dogs get over it, some dogs don't. It's kind of like people.
Yeah.
I had an ex-girlfriend who used to faint at the dentist's office.
Yeah.
She just like got really stressed out with the dentist. And I've heard of people not liking the dentist, but that was pretty extreme.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, I go to the dentist, I enjoy it, they clean my teeth, and I walk out.
Yeah.
So it can be more exposure. Are they walking distance of you?
No, no.
Because, for example, one thing that like I'll have some clients do with their dogs is like if the vet or the clinic or the groomer is close by, is on their walk, they just pop in, and usually they have biscuits and stuff, and they'll just give their dog a biscuit and they leave, you know? And then they just keep going there. Eventually it just becomes another place the dog goes to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's out of the picture, I also just wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just because dogs aren't meant to be groomed.
Yeah.
That is something that happens because we like our dogs to be clean and spiffy and looking fresh.
And it only happens once every couple months anyway, really.
Yeah.
So.
As long as he's not being, you know,
He
actively.
wasn't aggressive.
Yeah, he was
said.
just.
He was just
indifferent.
shaking,
You know how it is,
panting,
yeah. This.
Yeah.
His-
Yeah. So and also like when things clear up or when spring comes and you're able to expose them a bit more, that can also change things.
Okay.
Because again, with dogs like this, people tend to withdraw, you know, and not go out because they don't want to put their dog under stress or they don't know what to do.
Right.
So then the dog is even more anxious or antisocial because of their withdrawal.
Right.
So then once we get them to a point where I'm like, okay, now you're good, start exposing your dog, then over time they can kind of stabilize.
Got it. Okay. That sounds good.
But sorry?
One thing we can't do, we can't bring ourselves to do it. We can't do the bonker.
The bonker?
We can't.
Yeah, so then you're just gonna, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have, like you can do the e-collar in the home,
Okay.
but then you're gonna become collar dependent.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the problem,
Okay.
okay? And I understand why you can't do the bonker. It's the most common thing I come across. People can't handle physicality with their dog.
Yeah.
It's too confrontational for them.
Yeah.
But that's also part of what enables them. Because you're not willing to give him what he
The
needs.
discipline to show him.
Yeah, you know, because another dog, so to give you an example, I had a very anxious dog that came to my house for a board training many years ago.
Mhm.
And I didn't have any time to ease the dog in my home. I literally just walked into the dog, to my computer, had to respond on those emails. And my pit, so the dog was in my living room pacing, salivating like crazy. My pit was at my feet, and finally she just like gets up and starts walking over to the living room, right? So I started watching. She walks over to the living room very slowly, just very stoically, and she starts to walk around the dog, and then during passing, boom, she just nipped the dog. The dog yelped, and she turned around and walked out. And the dog sat there, or I was standing there, like this, and eventually sat down, eventually just fell asleep. Okay, so what my pit did was like, hey,
Come on.
That's not allowed here.
we don't do that here.
Yeah.
There's no need to be anxious here.
Yeah.
Right, and that's all she did. She just walked over, very stoically, very confidently, boom. Dog yipped, sat there like, okay, get your shit together,
Yeah.
relax until asleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's their language. Because, again, I have no problem with you using the e-collar to correct things, but then you're gonna find when he's got the collar on,
He's
gonna
going
be
act
good.
one way and, yeah.
And we don't want that.
No.
That's the
The
problem.
other thing you could do is a prong on a tab. So the prong is the spike-looking collar,
Mhm.
meant to mimic a dog bite. And the tab is simply a 1-foot leash. Okay, so then you clip it to the prong collar, so then you can correct with the collar. People tend to accept that better than actually doing it. It's weird, though they're willing to do this. So most people are willing to do this, right? Press a button.
Yeah.
Then the next thing was the yank. The last thing is the bonk. Okay, so usually people's
Yeah.
comfort levels. But you may come across that same problem of like, once we remove the prong, however,
Yeah.
right? So the reason why I like the bonker is just because you just need a towel. There's nothing on him physically present.
Right.
It's you. You can also do Caesar Milan touch, which is the, did I talk to you about that?
Mm-mm.
The hand poke? Are you familiar with Caesar Milan?
Mm-mm.
Do you have Disney Plus?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Caesar Milan, he was a dog whisperer. He had a show on National Geographic for a long time.
Okay.
But he has what he calls it the touch. So again, mimicking a dog bite. And what he would do is he would take his hand like this, right? to do a correction, and if you feel this, it kind of feels like a bite
Okay.
because your fingers are dispersed,
Yeah.
right? But we do it with intensity. And what we do is we correct around here to here, a little soft spot area, like that. Okay, so I do a little touch here. So if he's being whiny, I technically can correct him just like that to stop
Mhm.
the behavior.
Mhm.
Okay, so right there he gave me the perfect opportunity because he whined,
Mhm.
and I gave a quick little poke, right? Over here, some residual whining, but you can see how he's cleared some space.
Yeah.
Because that correction resonated
Yeah.
with him. Okay?
So there, in order to correct things like his, barking in the house, his,
Jumping.
jumping on people, there has to be some
Jumping,
element of
you can do-
physicality.
Correct. Jumping you can do with the e-collar. Okay,
But,
so.
but when it's not on in the home, do you know what I mean? Like, let's,
Right, so, guests coming in.
Yes.
Or even us walking in from running an errand, and we walk into,
Correct.
yeah.
So with your guests, easiest would be e-collar, okay? Because that's a context where there's gonna be outside stimuli. Because then, I get this, you bonk your dog in front of your guest, what the hell are you doing to your dog? And that's a whole nother spiel, right? It's easier with e-collar there.
Yeah.
Now, if it's just you walking into the home, yes, you can bonk. And yes to your answer, physicality.
Yeah.
Because that's his language,
Yeah.
right? Because if he jumped on a dog that didn't like it, what do you think they would do?
They would,
Bite 'em.
they would toss them off and.
Yeah.
They
to
don't
get
say,
over
honey,
it.
we don't do that here. No, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
Did I get the memo?
Yeah.
They bite them.
Yeah.
Okay, so dogs are all about physicality. They don't give each other treats. They don't talk each other into things. It's just, you do this, I don't like it, I bite you.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, he's looking at
Yeah,
me.
he's not whining and he's.
Calm. Out of
Yeah. And, like, so with the groomer, like, if I had this guy, like, I could calm him down.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I would correct them and do all that stuff.
Yep.
Right? And that's why I don't take those, whenever anybody says my dog had an issue at the daycare, at the vet, or at a
The
groomer.
handlers aren't necessarily.
They're not aware
Yeah.
as much as like.
That's why, like, when people come here for their training, they're like, do you have dogs here? I'm like, yeah, it's a daycare. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. They're like, but it's so quiet. I'm like, yeah, because we don't fucking allow
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We correct the dogs. Do we get barking? Yes, when they're playing and stuff, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a place over in the west side of Chicago. I went there to pick up a dog for a rescue. Man, so we have kennels out. You've seen the spot,
Yep.
right? You
Yeah.
have a playpen, right? And it's similar. There's a really big space with all the kennels on the outside of the play area, and the dogs are just blowing up, barking, and like that. You just see the handlers just walking through, and eventually someone caves, and they're just like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because they can't stop so
Right.
many dogs from barking. It's just people go crazy.
Right.
But we don't have that here because we do physicality.
Right.
We do what they need. In essence, we can have dogs in the play group and the dogs in the kennels resting and they're quiet.
Mhm.
They're going, okay, it's not our time to play. We rest and they play because of kind
They
of
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand how you feel about it. You have several options though.
Yep.
So e-collar for jumping on people coming into the home, and actually this is going to be a part of that answer too.
Okay.
So that gives you another option there. But for like stuff when it's just you alone, you want to become collar dependent, you have bonker still. You have the prong collar with the tab, and if you need me to email you that, just email me, let me know. Or the Caesar touch like you saw just
Yeah.
now. Okay? And then of course snap and soling after the fact.
Yep.
Questions?
No?
No.
That makes a lot of sense. I think
Yeah.
we just need to get over it.
Look at all you've achieved with your e-collar.
Yeah,
Right.
It's just
unbelievable.
easier
Yeah.
because it's non-confrontational.
Yes.
Which is what I like about
You
it.
feel like you're taking less responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
what you're doing.
It's like
yeah.
having a kid and like they're
Yeah.
so bad that you need to spank them, but you don't want to spank them. It's like
Yeah. Yeah,
at
no,
some
that's
point you
exactly
have to
right.
step up.
Yeah.
Like I know now things are weird, but I'm like if I have a kid and they need to be spanked, I'm spanking my kid. I don't
Mhm.
care what you say about
Million.
raising my kids. That's why
Million
kids have
percent.
problems now.
Yeah.
So this command, place command, very simple to teach. Will be very effective for you with the guests coming over type stuff. Okay.
And when we're eating.
And when you're eating,
Yeah.
right?
So currently we have a bed, and we say bed, which is his place, and he goes through right away. He knows it. He'll break it if
If you don't give him a treat.
After maybe what would you say 5 minutes is probably his breaking point. And
Oh,
then,
sure.
And then boom, he's
back.
He won't care. He'll be
And
right.
then he gets frustrated, and then it's less likely that when
He'll
you
go
say it
back.
again, he goes back.
Yeah.
Right.
So like he knows it, he responds to it, but
Chooses not to.
and then eventually he's like, this isn't benefiting me, so I'm leaving.
Sure.
So,
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I do the same thing too.
Yeah.
You
And
pay me, I'm gonna get out of here.
So yeah, we don't have, yeah.
So this is meant for as long as you want. 2
Right.
hours, 3
That would
hours,
be
6
good.
hours. That's the level of control you can get with this, okay? And it can also give you a more controlled instance to correct whining, because anxiety wants to move,
Right.
right? Just like on our consultation.
Mm-hmm.
So here, when we put a dog that's an anxious type into a stationary position, the brain wants to move, but the body has to sit still. So now we get conflict. Okay, so he's gonna start whining.
Mm-hmm.
So then we can correct him for the whining, but his reference point is the place command. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then eventually, in the beginning, what you'll see, he'll get confused and he'll flush off. But as we repeat it, he'll learn that the tap isn't for being on the bed, it's because he needs to settle.
Yep.
Okay? Just like that.
Yeah.
Right? So you see how he's starting to get a little bit anxious earlier?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And right when it just popped him that one time with
Yeah.
that touch, and he goes off
He's
and
completely
settles.
done.
It's exactly
That's-
like the instance of your dog and when you were.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar.
No.
Yes, when you
Yeah.
talk dog, right, it's quick.
Yeah.
But people don't like how dogs talk.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
You
Because it's
know?
not how humans talk to each other.
I mean, humans are physical too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
both with
Affection, like
confrontation and affection,
Yeah.
exactly. So like, as a businessman, I'm a big handshaker, right? But now it's like,
I know.
handshake anybody's
Yeah.
hands. And I remember when my insurance guy came over, he is like, like, you know, we still had that
Yeah.
thing, and I'm like, dude, you're cool. If you're a shaker, I'm a shaker. We're good, right?
Yeah.
And I get a lot of people that are just kind of on that because that's how we close deals, right? That's how we introduce. That's how we,
Right.
if like when I met my girlfriend's dad the first time, like I was like, I don't want to shake your dad's hand, but your dad's like, he's an older man, and
Right.
I was like, what's your dad feel
That's
about
all
it?
time. Yeah.
She was like, oh no, she's like, shake his hand. But after that, that was like the only time I ever shook his
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, physicality, both in affection, like you said there, and also both with like, hey, if you get in my face, I'm gonna defend myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Dogs do the same thing too. They nibble on each other as a form of affection, but they also bite each other as a form of discipline.
Right.
So with this command here, super simple. What we're gonna do is, what is our number currently?
It's at 33.
33. Let's go and dip that down to 18. So whenever we teach anything new, we always do dip down low. So what we want to teach here with Vinny is the send, which means going from your side to the placemats, okay? So we're gonna start about a foot away. So about 1 square away here.
Okay.
And if he goes there on his own, don't allow him to pull him back.
Okay.
You're gonna shorten your leash so you have a bit of leverage here. And what I usually recommend in the beginning is brace it with your foot, because sometimes when you try to move the dog there, they'll push with their feet and they'll move the bed. You're gonna start tapping on that 18, and as long as we see a response, you're gonna keep tapping and then pull with the leash to get Vinny on the bed. Once all fours are on the bed, you then stop tapping.
Okay.
If Vinny were to continue going and go off the bed, you're gonna add counter pressure going this way, start tapping again, he gets back on, and we stop. He
Okay.
goes off, I pull in, tap, tap, he goes on, I stop. Once he sits there for a moment or so, break, and then we're gonna move away backwards to draw him to us, and then we're gonna walk towards the bed again, about a foot away, wait a moment, start tapping, and then lead him on again.
So you don't no verbal command
Not at
at
the
all?
moment, correct.
Okay.
So it's kind of like with the heel, remember we taught the
Yeah.
heel first, no word? Because I want to make sure, like let's say because he knows a bed command at your home, you said,
Yeah.
right? So like let's say you did say go to your bed and he just hopped on there. Well, great, but it didn't allow us to use the remote to teach him to go there.
Right.
So by the end of the class, we'll be using the phrase.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and stand up with Vinny here.
Come on.
Get it up there, and I'm gonna have you choke up a little bit more in the leash. Perfect. Now you're at 18, correct?
Yeah.
So we're gonna go and start tapping, tap. Let's go a little bit lower. Let's go down to 12. And tap, 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 tap. Choke up a bit more. There you go. Yeah, right there. And tap, 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 tap. A little bit more of a forward pull. Tap. Right there, and relax. Wait a moment. Let's go to 15. Okay. And then you're gonna say break and then move backwards.
Break.
Good, and then we're gonna represent them, okay? And go ahead and, yeah, pivot, there you go, so he's on that side. Wait a moment. Tap, tap, and pull, tap, tap. Good, wait a moment, now pull back, tap. Good, wait. Break.
Break.
Good, we're gonna try it 3 more times. Tap, tap, right there, good, and wait a moment. Good boy. Break.
Break.
Good, 2 more. Tap, tap. There you go, almost tap. Good, wait a moment. Good. Break.
Break.
1 more.
That's crazy that it's so low in here, but like the number.
Oh, sure,
It's
yeah.
so effective still.
Tap. Right there, good. So we went from a number of taps to 5 taps to 3 taps, now it was 1 tap.
Yeah.
It just goes. The reason why it's so effective is because quiet room, where you don't have the dogs in there, anything like
Different
that.
environment.
Yeah.
Less stimulus around.
Correct. So inside the home where he's more comfortable, where he's, king of the castle, you might have a higher number, or you might have the same number, right? But that's why we always go down low, as opposed to starting on 33.
Yeah.
That would have been way too much power. Okay, so whenever we teach anything new, we always do reset because he has, even though he's familiar with go to your bed at home, it looks a particular way in a particular context. Now we're here at my facility with a different looking bed,
Yep.
right? So now we have to teach them that this is essentially what you do over there, but we're putting pressure behind it, which makes it mean something, which is what allows us to have him, like I don't know if you've seen the dogs on the beds here when we were training.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll be there for 2 to 3 hours just chilling. Dogs passing by, dogs training, dogs playing in the play areas and stuff, and they're just there chilling. So they're learning like, okay, I can just sit here with like all this stuff going on.
And
I don't need to do
I feel
anything.
fine, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna repeat that same process, except now, when you send him, we're gonna go about 2 squares back. Okay? Break.
Break. And do I pull him forward on the tap?
You're gonna start tapping first, about 1 to 2, and then the pull. Go ahead and, before you start, choke up a little bit more. Yeah, that's good right there. And tap, tap, and forward, tap, tap, right there. Good, wait a moment, and a boy, and break.
Break.
Good, 4 more. Tap, tap, pull. There you go. We're at 15, right?
Correct.
So this is my 13. And break.
Break.
Good, 3 more. Yeah, good.
That was, yeah.
Oh, 2 there, right?
Yeah, and I didn't pull him like at all.
It was him.
Yeah, mostly him.
Excellent.
When I was on the court there.
2 more.
Break.
Right, good. Good.
Yeah, he's,
Much better.
that was all on too. Good.
Break.
Break.
1 more. Good. Right there. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna swap handlers. We're gonna keep him on the bed. If in the transition he tries to sneak off, whoever has the remote or the leash will start to correct him back, okay?
Okay.
Good. Go ahead and say break
Break.
and backwards. I'm gonna have you start at that 2 feet
Okay.
range too, okay?
Right here.
So I'm gonna have you restrain a little bit. And then we wanna get that tap in first, okay?
Okay.
Break.
Break.
Okay, wait a moment. Yep, wait a moment. Now relax your arm. Relax a little bit more. So you use the tension to keep him, but then you want to relax so that it's not the tension keeping him there, right? It's him, exactly. Now you're gonna tap, tap, and then pull forward like that. Perfect. Good.
Boy.
And break.
Break.
Good. 4 more. Wait a moment. Yep. Good. Good, 3 more. Good. Right, that was good.
Break. Oh.
Right, good. Wait a moment. Right. Perfect.
Break.
Good. 1 more. Good. Right, good.
You just aim
He wants to avoid
please.
that first tap.
Yes. That's part of the anxious.
Yeah.
There you go. Once we start adding a word, and the other thing is because we're doing this is redundant, anxious dogs tend to get stressed because like you said, he's like, I know that tap's coming,
Yeah.
so just let me go.
Mhm.
So then by not letting him go, and he's in anticipation of it, you're getting anxious.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna do the same process, but now I'm gonna have you start walking around the placemat and stopping, still keeping that 2 foot distance, but sending from, yep, good, sending from different angles. Okay.
So I walk around, he stays.
No, so you're gonna release him,
Okay.
and then you're gonna come back, but this time you might send them from here.
Got it.
Or you might come around and you can send them from here. You're just,
Do you stop first and
Yes.
then tap and then he goes
Got
on?
it, just so he gets used to getting on from different angles.
correct, and you're gonna stop, pause, and then tap.
Got it.
Because if you stop and tap right away, what he's gonna pick up on that pattern, so when you stop, he's gonna start going.
Yep.
So the pause is so that the gap allows us to make it very obvious that when I tap, that's what he's responding to.
Yep.
Kind of like the first one you did where you just waited there.
Yep.
And then he tapped after he tried to go forward and then he went. It was like real obvious.
Mhm.
Same concept here, but now you're doing it from different areas.
Okay. Great. All right.
Right. Right. Good.
You might get that choke on that.
Yeah, there you go. And then relax a little bit. Wait a moment. No. Yeah, there you go. Good.
Boy. Hey, break.
Right. Good. Try to go dad on that one.
Try to what?
Try to go to dad.
Yeah.
Break.
Break.
Good. 3 more. Yeah, that's actually gonna be a good one. Yeah. Wait a moment. Now. Good. The reason why that was gonna be a good one is because since
He was trying
Like, get
Really?
comfort from you.
to,
He's
he was
like,
trying
help
to
me
like
out,
nestle
yeah.
off to me.
yeah, and it's like nope,
Break.
gotta do it.
Good boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Good. Last one. Good. Now what we're gonna do here is go ahead and have a seat. We're gonna keep him there. We're gonna keep the leash in your hand.
Okay.
We're gonna walk around, and you might have to tap. Good. And then you may have to pull your chair a little forward. There you go. Now sit. Perfect. Okay. So we're gonna keep him there. Okay. So if he tries to break off, you're gonna start tapping. We're not gonna say anything, and we're gonna lead him back. Okay.
Okay.
So what we're teaching here is the send. I tap, you go. Because for the past couple of weeks, tap has meant walk at that hip. Okay. So now we're teaching them tap, tap, tap. Good. And let's tap, tap. Let's go to bump it. We're at 15.
12.
12. Let's go to 15 again.
Okay.
Is then we have the don't move aspect.
Yeah.
Okay. These are 2 separate things, but you can work on them at the same time. So really all I want is, once we start learning the phrase, is, you know, I say place, he just goes.
Yep.
Very easily, okay? I don't want place, Vinny, place, right? Because that means,
That's how it is
That's
now.
how it's.
yeah, we want place, boom, okay? So that's one aspect, yeah. Oh. Psych. The other one is the don't move, right? And now we're working the don't move.
Okay.
Okay, so here we're gonna talk for a little bit and he still has to stay in that spot. but because he's an anxious type and he wants to get to you for comfort or whatever reason, it's challenging for him. So to teach the don't move aspect, what we do is, I go about it and whenever I'm not going to do anything. If I'm going to sit down and watch TV, if I'm going to read a book, if I'm going to do work on my computer, I'm going to be stationary for a bit. So I take the bed, pop it next to me, Vinny place, I have the leash on with my equipment, and then you put the leash on around my arm, or I can step on it and get to work, okay? 30 minutes later, he's like, this is stupid, I want to move, and he tries to hop off. I'm stepping on the leash, can't get anywhere. Start tapping until he fixes himself, go back to doing work, or go back to watching TV. Okay?
Is the end goal to eventually have it such that you don't need the e-collar for him to stay in the place, or will he always need it?
Depends on the context. Like, let's say it's just you guys, because there's no outside stimuli.
Yep.
That's the problem, is outside stimuli.
Got it.
Okay, so in the home during dinner, let's say you practice for a couple of months, you can get up to the point, yes, where you wouldn't need the collar.
Got it.
Because it's just you. But if like family comes over or something like that, friends come over, now you have stimuli.
Yep.
Right? That's going to be added energy, it's different, it's going to make them excited that you have something to compete with. I would expect you to have your collar on,
Yep.
right? So inside the home again, collar tends to go away in most cases. In the cases that it don't, it's usually my extreme cases. So here, and technically you could even use like the prong collar, the tab to correct them for this stuff as well. But since it's a routine of like, 7 o'clock, we always eat dinner for an hour. Monday through Friday, whatever, right? You have that set routine. Dogs are really creatures of habit. So eventually the routine itself also helps them just learn like, okay, they eat dinner, I go here for an hour,
Yeah.
right? But when it's like, oh, we're having the neighbors over or something, that's a bit different. You most likely have your collar on. But if you did that kind of like the same people over at the same time, blah, 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 same thing happened.
Okay.
That I would think at that context, you can move past it.
Right.
Because it's a regular thing.
Right.
Okay, so it's whenever stuff is familiar to a dog, it's easier to move past the collar. It's when there's going to be unfamiliar stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, just the more disciplined you are with other stuff, this is an overall picture, right? So if like you're strict your dog with all the obedience stuff, but you don't do anything about the behavior, right? Like either with hand corrections or whatever methodology, you now have there's this disproportion. Or sometimes there's stuff that we just ignore, and then there's other times where we expect them to be a good dog, right? But when you have all across the board, this is why like my dogs are so consistent, is because I'm consistent across the board. They're not allowed to do behaviors and I correct them with my hand, or I will correct them with the bonker or the prong collar or the eat. Like everything's always been, I will correct it. So the dog just thinks like there's no way of getting around this but to be compliant.
Right.
And if we're compliant, we avoid everything.
Right.
So that also helps. Okay, if you're just across the board with stuff.
Right.
But when it comes to the don't move aspect, like I said, if you're gonna watch TV for a bit, if you're gonna do homework work all day, you're gonna do work, or eat dinner or whatever, you can use this because you're gonna be stationary for a bit. But we always start close, because if you try to place him and then you're across the room eating dinner and he gets up, well, guess what? Now you gotta walk across the room to take him back. So it's more work. Okay, so in the beginning we start close, easier to correct because I can just step on the leash. So on our placemats here, you notice by the columns and there's leashes on them, right? One, those are precautionary, but two, they also make it easier for us to correct the dog. So if we're across the room working with the dog and they get off a place, and I can correct them from across the room without even needing to touch them because they can't get anywhere. Okay, and you can already see the brain wanting to move. So we're gonna do something here. Go ahead and give a tap. 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 18. Maybe lost connection. Tap. Tap. Wait a moment. Tap. 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 Good. Come on, see. Wait a moment. Give a little bit of counter pressure. There we go. Tap. Tap. Good. Wait a moment. So what we're doing here, tap, tap, 21. Right. What are we at?
21.
Oh, I thought you were bumping it. It looked like you were bumping it. I was like, yeah, where is she at? So here, he's on place, and then you correct and go, I don't need you whining. Kind of like what we did when you were stationary, remember?
Mhm.
Same exact thing, except here, he flushes off, because he's like, oh crap, maybe I'm not supposed to be here anymore. So then you continue with the pressure, and you kick back in with it because he stepped off a place. So first you're correcting for the whining, but then he flushes off because he's confused, so we have to correct him for flushing off, and then we flush him back on again.
Mhm.
So then he goes, oh, that's weird. I got tapped for being on the bed, but then I got tapped to go back on the bed. Why?
Mhm.
Right? And eventually he learns, oh, that tap means for me to shut up.
Yep.
Okay? But in the beginning, you're going to get that confusion.
Mhm.
And eventually you'll tap him, and what you'll see is it'll put him into a resting state where he'll lay down. Here he's clearly uncomfortable, right? How he's sitting and he's panting and obviously all that shaking and stuff.
Mhm.
He's uncomfortable. So here, sometimes you can force the relaxation by tapping to just break this mindset.
Mhm.
He would still be shaking and panting, but he'd be in a resting state, meaning he'd be laying down.
Got it.
Okay. Now you don't have to do that, but like let's say the whining is just getting out of hand and you want to confront it. That's how you would do so.
Okay.
So here, when we get anxious dogs, again, anxious energy wants to move. So when we're anxious, we tend to pace, move around, and fidget, right?
Mhm.
Same thing for dogs. So we had to give you an example. We had a black Russian Terrier that came in last year for a 4-week board and train, and 1-year-old, not neutered, never been told to do a thing in his life. Big bred, okay, 150-pound dog, huge. And he would jump up and he would bark at his owner's face like this when he wanted attention. So he comes here for a 4-week board and train. When we did place with him for about a week, he did nothing but stand for hours. Because he's a board and train, he did a lot of duration work. So we could have him there for 3 hours. He'd be standing the whole time, salivating. Okay, he'd have puddles on his placement. We had to clean it up. And then after a week, he finally sat down. Okay, and it was a big deal. Everybody's like, holy shit, Jaeger finally sat down, right? Because he was so uncomfortable with being told to not move for a period of time, he was standing. Eventually, the brain can only stay in that mental state for so long. So it's like being angry, right?
Mhm.
If you're angry, you can't be angry all day. You let it go at some point unless something reminds you of what angered you, or you see the person that angered you, right? Then it triggers again, but you can't keep on it all day. So eventually you wear the brain out. Then he started to sit, and we're like, oh shit, he's starting to cave in. And then like 3 days later, I think, he finally laid down. But he was a lot of panting, a lot of salivating. And then I think maybe 4 to like days to like 7 days later, he would lay down and go to sleep. Okay, but it took us approximately about 2 weeks of like, and we're doing like 6 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
Okay, like 2 hours here, 2 hours here, so on and so forth, of like just, you're not gonna move. And it was like a shell shock, you know, because he was so used to just doing whatever he wanted and bullying his owner and all that stuff, that he's just like, what? Right? So eventually he got tired, the brain got tired, and then the body feels that the brain is tired, and then the body is tired, and then you start to see them just kind of came in.
Yep.
And then finally he was like, all right, he's like, I'll just go here and rest now.
Mhm.
So for guys like this, expect in the beginning, he's gonna be very uncomfortable,
Mhm.
okay? He's gotta go through the process.
Yep.
Eventually, being in an anxious state for so long becomes overwhelming and tiresome. He's gotta cave in, okay? And what you'll start seeing is the more you push this, the faster he goes to this state, okay? So you can either try to push it. If he's being super whiny, then I would suggest you correct him for that, okay? If he's there and he's just like sitting and panting a lot, and he's not really whining, you can just wait it out and let him cave in himself, okay? There's no right or wrong here.
Yep.
This command, you can literally go home right now, do 2 hours, okay? Because it's just don't move, okay? You've taught him what to do. Go here. This is your perimeter.
Mhm.
Don't get off of it, right? So as long as he's within the space of the place, I don't care what he does. He can sit, he can stand, he can lay down. He just cannot step off of it, okay? So the reason why you can do 2 hours is because if you're gonna sit still, watch TV, and watch a movie, just step on the leash,
Mhm.
right? And then 30 minutes goes by, he gets bored, he tries to sneak away, tap, tap, he goes back on, he goes back to watching TV. 15 minutes later, he tries to hop off,
That's
tap,
good
tap,
for at
back
night.
on.
Yeah, we can do that pretty
Yep.
routinely.
Yep.
Good, and I would encourage you to do so with this kind of energy type,
Yep.
because people tend to blow off place, because it's so easy, okay? It's so easy to just do this whenever, that I think people push it back, like, oh, I can do this whenever, it's easy to do. But the purpose of this is, like, you can even take them to a restaurant with you,
Mhm.
pop a towel down, Vinny, place, and enjoy a nice brunch or a dinner,
Yeah.
and then, all right, let's go. So he's contained, right? And someone can come by and say, oh, your dog's cute, can I pet him? You're like, sure. And they pet him and he stands up, but he's not doing anything wrong because he's on
Mhm.
place. As long as he stays within the perimeter, doesn't matter.
Right.
Right, so then he's under control. Your guest coming over,
Yep.
right? Now this is what we would call preventative control. Doesn't stop the jumping, it prevents the jumping. Okay, but, so when they come in, if Vinny, like at 5:30 the guest is coming, 5 o'clock Vinny's already on place. You already have him there, right? People tend to try to establish control when they have no control,
Mhm.
and I establish the control before,
Yeah.
right? And you have them on the leash and everything, and you can do one of two things. You can have like a tag team where one person is back with the leash slack, like you're holding here with the remote, and the other opens the door and they correct Vinny just the same way as you're going about it here. The number may escalate because, of course, we have stimuli. Or you can leave the leash on the ground or whatever, and then go, and then when he starts to run over, you step on the leash, pick it up, start tapping,
Yeah.
bump it if needed to correct him to go back.
Mhm.
Okay, so then your guest comes in, Vinny's like, all right, my job is to be here, I can't do anything. Okay, now what could happen is if it's somebody he really likes coming in and he's stuck on place, barking. Because now that he can't jump on them or get to them, we get frustration due to separation.
Mhm.
But then you would simply correct them for the barking, but then you'd probably see them flush off, so you keep correcting them to bring it back on again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Similar to what you did here.
Yeah. You should try that this weekend if you have people over.
Yeah.
When I'm gone.
Yeah.
So, the hardest part is building to having Vinny away from you and staying there. Okay, so this takes time. So the process is typically week 1 at our side, or at least in an immediate space, to make it super simple to correct. Okay, and there's no rules to how long you can do. You don't have to do 5 minutes here to 10 minutes to 15. Literally, you can go home right now and do 2 hours. Okay, just expect mistakes.
Yeah.
So right now, he's trying to get off like what, twice?
Mhm.
In a span of about 10 to 15 minutes, right? That's why we do this. Because
Yep.
I was like, we're gonna talk for a bit, so why not get some use out of this, right?
Right.
So you're just teaching them that when we send you here, you cannot step off. Because if you do, correction happens with no warning.
Right.
So then he thinks, well, crap, if I don't want to be corrected, then I just don't get off.
Yep.
Okay? So that's why we don't say stay with this. It's implied. And when you create that implication, every time he sneaks off and he's being corrected, he thinks, oh crap, I guess I want to stay here.
Mhm.
Otherwise I get corrected.
Mhm.
Second week, if you've practiced that regularly, we go to Vinny on the bed, and then you get up and go to the kitchen for something and come back. Now we start to add movement. Okay? The third week is Vinny is about 4 to 6 feet away, still relatively close, right? And then we do that for a week. And then the fourth week, we push to, okay, Vinny, you're over there, I'm over here. And I go in out and out the room, I go to the kitchen, go to the bathroom, go get the mail real quick, come back. You don't move. Okay, you start making it more complex.
Got it.
Because these beginning weeks, you're correcting, that by the time you get there, ideally, you're not still correcting.
Mhm.
And if we have to correct, if I tap him, boom, he just goes straight back because he has a very good concept. Okay? In the first week, let's say Vinny is here, I decide I want to grab a beer, I release him. Okay? Because I'm not going to expect him to stay this early on. So what I do is I go, Vinny, break. Then I get up, go get my drink, come back, place. Okay? I don't get up and then release him.
Yep.
Why?
It doesn't teach him, like, maybe he associates then you getting up with his ability to get up.
Yes, he's going to assume every time you get up, you should release me.
Exactly.
So we flip it. We break first so that there's no real cue from me
Yeah.
to say, like, hey, you might be released.
Right.
Okay? So we do that the first week. And then by the second week, you get up, but we don't release.
Mhm.
Right? But he's not going to have anything to go by. So
Right.
we don't create that problem. Questions on any of that so far?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Place can be any number of things. It can be a dog bed, it can be a towel, it can be a blanket. One time I worked with a client at Oz Park and I forgot my placemat, so I used my jacket. Just popped it down on the ground. We use that for training. It's just something that gives it a perimeter. Okay? I had a client that had a really big area rug, and they said, "Can that be placed?" And I said, "Sure. It's just a really big place. Like his dog could literally run around and like sit and, or not or walk or whatever because it was that big. It's just the dog cannot step off of the area rug. Okay? You can have one in the kitchen, one in the living room, one in the dining room, one in the bedroom, and he will send to the one within the context. So if you're in the bedroom and you say place, you would go to the one in the bedroom. Okay? If you have one throughout the house, that's fine as well. But if you wanted to be able to send them to that particular place from anywhere, you'd have to work backwards. Right? So first we started at a foot. in one space. And then we moved it back to 2 feet at the same direction. Then we moved it to 2 feet from around the place. So if you're trying to send them from anywhere within the home, you would just keep moving further and further back as you got more comfortable with it.
Okay.
If you kept it in the same spot, that would make it easier as well, at least for you.
Mhm.
You can also just have one place that you move around the house. So if he has like a dog bed and it's in the living room and you put it, he'll recognize the object. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pick it up and put it in the kitchen, you say place, where, oh, there it is. What's that one?
Yep.
If you're gonna teach a new place, like let's say you decide like, yeah, let's take them with us to the restaurant, and you bring a towel and you've never worked them with that, you'd have to teach them. Okay, he's not gonna just transfer a place, oh, that towel must be it. You have to do what we did here with the towel,
Okay.
and then layer in the word, now you have another object.
Got it.
Okay? Place cannot be something like a corner, right? Because it ends that way, but where does it end this way? Okay, so it has to be something that has a perimeter. Questions?
No, you talked about like preventative versus like, you know, in the act. How should we go about, like, what are the tips for jumping on us when we walk in? Let's say we walk in and, you know, both of us do, and he starts jumping.
Physicality.
Yeah, with the e-collar, how do we do it?
Okay. I would practice with each other first, so you can get the baseline down. Let's say you're home with them, you walk in, stand still. Okay, ignore him. He starts jumping on you. You're on the collar. 15, 20, 25, right? 30, and then he finally stops jumping. Then you go to pet him. He starts to jump again. You stop petting him, you tap. He stops jumping. You pet him. He jumps. You tap. You pet him. He doesn't jump. We continue petting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you're giving him what he wants, but you're teaching him, hey, if you want this, don't do this.
Right.
Okay, so we're balancing, we're doing positive punishment and positive reinforcement. So you figure out the numbers first, okay? And you do that for a couple of days or a week or whatever. And then when your friends come over, you know, like, yeah, usually around 25, 30 is when his correction number. Just jump to 25.
Okay.
And then advise your guest, ignore Vinny. Okay, they ignore him. You make it, by that point, it might be just a singular tap, even, right? And eventually, they'll come in. He won't do anything because he's learned that jumping gets him a correction. Okay. Now, there's one thing that can throw all this down the drain.
Being really excited when you walk in.
Yes. So if they come in, they're like, "But Vinny, you're my buddy," right? And all that stuff.
It's setting him up to fail. He's never gonna win.
Correct. So, like, could you make him not jump there? Absolutely. But you're going to be higher up.
Yeah.
Right? So what I do is controlled context, right? Yep. Controlled context, get that number down, get a foundation in. So by the time we add in the guest, it should be a simple tap to stop him. Go ahead and bump to like 25. But if they come in with a lot of energy and you have to correct them, it could be like 45, right? And then he gives a big gift. Okay? But the problem isn't so much Vinny as it is the guest just not behaving correctly around.
Yeah, sure. You have to prime them and make them understand that these are the rules.
Yeah, because like, there's a trainer where, wait a moment. That someone came up to him and talking to the dog, and the dog jumped. So he popped the dog really harshly on the prong collar. And the person like flipped out on him, like, what the fuck are you doing to the dog? He's like, I'm being trained to train this dog, and your behavior forced the dog to make a mistake, which then forces me to correct the dog, because that's what I'm being paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really your fault, because I did not give you permission to pet this dog. You just came over here, right? And then of course the person kept arguing because they didn't want to see that. They just saw the dog being yanked. But that's how that works. So yes, he can learn to be around excited energy and not reciprocate. It's just expected to be more harsh on the collar. So I always do controlled context first, and then we do excited energy. Okay, so then after you get that baseline down, you can even do it yourself. So you come in, you're still ignoring them physically, but you're giving energy. Right, type of stuff to correct him. So he's like, oh, even if that energy comes in, I can't jump on you. Now, I don't need him to sit. I need him to not jump.
Yep.
Okay, so if he's like excited and like rubbing on you and stuff and you're cool with that,
Wagging his tail a lot or
we're good.
whatever, yeah.
It's the jumping that we don't want.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
that makes a
so,
lot of sense.
yeah, because you can't make him be stoic,
Right.
right? Like he's gonna reciprocate, it's
Yeah.
just how he reciprocates
Yeah.
that we'll care about,
Right.
okay? But that's how you can do that with the e-collar.
Okay.
Okay. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and add in that verbal cue. What cue do you use at home?
Bed,
We use
but we
bed.
can start using place.
Doesn't matter. If you want to use bed, it's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Since he's already familiar with it.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna do is same process. You're gonna cue him to break, and you're gonna walk a little bit, come around, come to a stop. Again, don't allow him to jump on himself, by himself. Restrain him, relax, wait a moment. Vinny, bed. And then right when you say bed, you're gonna kick in with the tapping. And if he doesn't respond to that second or third tap, you're gonna keep tapping and then pull.
Okay.
Okay? Now, instead of releasing him though, I'm gonna have you stand up first. So that you see what he does. Good. And then go ahead and just walk around real quick. Walk around the bed. Tap, tap,
So want me to bring back on?
tap. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So right there, just taking advantage of the situation. We were still for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then you stood up, he didn't move, that was good. But then we started to walk, he's like, oh, where are we going?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct enough. Doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Right.
You stay put.
Right.
Okay? Break.
Break.
Good.
Boy.
Okay, good. Wait a moment. Excellent. Relax. Good. Good.
Bed.
Tap. Good. Right. Break.
Break.
Good. Four more. That was a good one.
That was good.
That was a cue and then one tap and next one.
Bed. Break.
Good. When you cue the bed, no pull.
Oh, did I pull on that?
Yeah. So bed, tap first and then pull if needed.
Bed.
There you go. Perfect. That's it. That was real good. Two more.
Break. Bed.
Good. Last one.
Vinny, break. It's not coming off, dude. Bed.
Good. Let's go on top handlers here. And you're gonna do the same process, but I'm gonna have you go ahead and walk around
Okay.
and set from different angles.
Okay, Vinny. Break. Bed.
Good. I think you lost contact.
Did we?
What's your number?
26.
Yeah, because he was tap here. Tap. Yeah.
So on and off again, or on
I'll
how?
go to 30. And tap. Right there.
Okay.
Okay, so you can, if you lose contact either through shaking or moving or whatever, we just go up a little bit. And like right there on the 30, you saw him shake his head on that second
Yeah,
tap. That's
yeah.
how you get a connection. Yeah.
Break. Bed.
Good. That was good.
Break.
Good. 3 more.
Bed.
I think we lost it again. Go try 35. Yeah, 30.
Okay, Vinny. Break.
You didn't scratch at it, buddy. Maybe we'd have some consistent contact. Hey.
Bed.
Good. That one actually, so it's just a cue, right?
Yeah.
So that, because you said bed and he immediately started going, that is correct. We do not tap there.
Yeah.
So he's learning if I respond fast, I
Mm-hmm.
can avoid the hit.
Mm-hmm.
One more.
Okay, break. Bed.
A bit of a pull, right there. Perfect. Good. So, your homework for this week. This exercise, one for each of you, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, place, break, place, break, whatever. Moving around. Yep. Moving around to work on the scent. Once we get consistent, bed, boom, bed, boom, bed, boom. Then I don't have to practice that anymore. He's got a good concept. Then I work on, or you can move. Then you just focus on the stationary.
Yeah.
But you can do stationary at the same time.
Okay.
Right? It's just once it gets to the point of where he just goes, we don't need to do the intermittent back and forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is meant for.
Yeah.
In terms of how far to send him, the typical range is about 4 to 6 feet.
Okay.
Unless you want to do, like I said earlier, like send him from anywhere within the home to one particular spot, then you're gonna have to slowly work your way back. There's no such thing as too much or too long when it comes to stationary work because it's not redundant. This back and forth is redundant. Okay, a lot of dogs get frustrated with this. So that's why I try to keep it short. I only do 5 reps or whatever. I said 2 to 3 minutes a piece because if you do this for too long, dogs get really frustrated and burnt out. But the aspect of don't move, well, you would only correct him or send him if he broke off.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. When we say bed, we don't say stay, not needed. It's implied if he breaks off, just correct him. If he were to break off, you would start correcting him. You wouldn't repeat the command of bed, okay? Because you want him to tie that if he breaks it, there is no warning. The correction will kick in.
It's not like a new command. It's not
Exactly, because
yeah.
that's exactly what it is. So when people say bed and then bed again, it's a new command. Same command, but new command.
Yeah.
It's the tiniest little thing that people always struggle with. And they'll say, Jesse, my dog knows place, but they won't stay on place. And I'm like, do you repeat? And they go, yeah. And when the dog gets off, I'm like, that's why, because you're resetting. Nothing's saying go there and don't move.
Right.
Okay, so when you correct him when he breaks off without permission, you're teaching him don't move.
It has to have a different meaning.
Correct. So it's a tiny little thing, but it's one of the most common things I get with people with stationary work.
Wow.
And their dog not working or not taking it in is because of that.
Okay.
Also, watch his mindset. So here, like what you might find is you're like, just gonna slowly inch off the bed, you know, where you see them like this in the corner. And if you look at him, you're like, you're trying to sneak off. Correct. Okay, don't wait for him to already be
If
off.
he has like one paw still on, he's off.
Don't give him an inch. Yeah.
And if he falls asleep and he happens to be half on the bed, half off the bed, he's sleeping, whatever, right?
Right.
But you can, trust me, you'll see it, and then you'll be like,
He's gonna do that.
Yeah, you're trying to
he's
sneak away.
mischievous like that for sure.
Yeah, no, he's gonna do that
Like
today, I
immediately,
bet.
yeah.
my Pit, when she was a puppy, I remember I placed her and I went to the kitchen and I came back, she was like this.
He's gonna do that.
It's one of my favorite stories ever. Everybody was okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, she knew she had to have contact.
She
You're just pushing.
Yeah, exactly.
Forward,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just like-
He's a pusher too. He pushes it.
Yeah.
Questions?
I don't think so. It makes a lot of sense. I'm excited to practice this. It's annoying when we're eating, so this will be really good.
Yep, okay. So you can start doing this for some stationary control, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Good work.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Jesse.
Break.
Good job, Vin.